The Merowick Foundation sat like a polished monument to generosity, all glass and steel, reflecting a city that never stopped moving. Inside, everything was quiet by design. Even the elevators whispered. Victor Merowick had insisted on that years ago. Silence felt expensive, controlled, safe. On the third floor, Eleanor Merowick faced the largest window in the building, though she rarely saw what was beyond it. Her wheelchair was positioned carefully, angled just enough to suggest choice, not necessity. Paula, her nurse, adjusted the blanket over Eleanor's legs, a ritual they both pretended still mattered. Outside, traffic crawled. People hurried. Life happened without pausing for her. 3 years earlier, Eleanor had loved this window. She used to press her forehead against the glass, tracing imaginary paths between cars, guessing where strangers were headed. That was before the accident, before her mother's laughter cut off mid-sentence, before her body betrayed her in ways doctors explained with too many words and too little hope. Victor stood behind her now, phone in hand, pretending to read emails. In truth, he was watching Eleanor's reflection in the glass. She hadn't smiled since the rehab center. Not a real one. Her face had learned stillness the way he'd learned profit margins, through repetition. A soft knock interrupted the quiet. A security guard leaned in, uneasy. "Sir," he said, lowering his voice. "There's something outside." Victor didn't look up. "If it's another protest, handle it." "It's not that," the guard said. "It's a kid." Victor sighed and gestured to the security feed. The screen flickered to life. On the sidewalk across from the foundation gate, a boy stood barefoot on cold concrete. Someone had drawn a rough circle around him in chalk. No sign, no music, just a boy moving. His clothes were worn thin, the kind that told a story before he ever opened his mouth. But the way he danced, precise, controlled, clashed with everything else about him. He wasn't flailing for attention. He was listening to something no one else could hear. Victor watched for a second longer than he meant to. Something about the boy's restraint unsettled him. Most street performers begged with their eyes. This one didn't. "Get him to move along," Victor said finally, already turning away. Down the hall, Eleanor shifted. It was barely noticeable. A small tilt of her head. Paula caught it immediately. "Do you see something?" Paula asked gently. Eleanor didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the screen now, on the boy's feet as they slid and stopped again. There was a pause before each turn, as if he were waiting for permission. A memory flickered. Her mother counting beats in the kitchen, laughing when Eleanor got it wrong. "Listen before you move," she'd said. "Music doesn't rush you." Eleanor's fingers curled slightly against the armrest. "Can I?" Paula hesitated. "Can I get the binoculars?" Victor froze. He hadn't heard Eleanor ask for anything in months. Paula brought the binoculars and placed them gently in Eleanor's hands. Eleanor lifted them slowly, afraid the moment would break if she moved too fast. The boy spun. Not flashy, not loud, just right. Something inside Eleanor cracked, not painfully, but enough to let air in. Below, Jonah glanced up, just once, his eyes brushing the building like he could feel someone watching. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. He simply danced a little harder, as if answering a call he didn't fully understand. Eleanor's lips trembled. The sound that escaped her surprised everyone, including herself. It was a laugh. Short, fragile, real. Victor turned around too late to pretend he hadn't heard it. And somewhere deep inside the building, something long sealed shifted, as if the foundation itself had noticed. Jonah had learned early not to look up at buildings like the Merowick Foundation. They made you feel small, like the city itself was judging whether you deserve space. Still, something about that window, third floor, left side, kept pulling at him. Not curiosity, recognition, the kind that didn't make sense until later. He finished a sequence and held the stillness, chest rising, feet planted. Silence mattered as much as movement. His mother had drilled that into him long before the streets did. "Anyone can make noise," she used to say, tapping his chest with 2 fingers. "Stillness is how you make them listen." A few coins clinked onto the concrete. A woman smiled, then walked away. A man filmed for a few seconds and lost interest. That was usually how it went. Jonah bent to gather the coins quickly. Lingering made security nervous. 5 minutes, the guard said, stepping out through the gate. Jonah nodded, relief loosening his shoulders. Some guards chased. Some cursed. This one handed him a bottle of water like it cost nothing. Jonah took it carefully, as if sudden generosity might vanish if he moved wrong. He drank, then started again. This time, he changed the rhythm. Faster footwork. Sharper turns. Riskier stops. He felt eyes on him, more than the small crowd warranted. He didn't know why, but the sensation tightened his focus. He imagined the music his mother used to hum while cooking, off-key and fearless. He danced to that. Upstairs, Eleanor's laughter had faded into disbelief. She pressed a hand to her mouth, as if afraid it might escape again without warning. Paula knelt beside her, whispering encouragement she didn't quite believe in herself. "It's okay," Paula said. "You don't have to stop it." Eleanor didn't answer. She was watching the boy's pauses now, the way he waited before each turn, exactly how her mother had taught her. Victor stood rigid behind them, memories firing too fast to organize. He remembered a younger Eleanor spinning barefoot in this very building. He remembered his wife standing by the window, smiling at nothing, saying, "She listens before she moves." That's rare. Outside, Jonah ended his set with a clean stop, bowing slightly, not to the crowd, but toward the building. He didn't know why he did it. It just felt correct. Then it happened. The laugh came again. Longer this time. Unmistakable. Jonah looked up instinctively, heart pounding. He saw movement behind the glass. A girl in a wheelchair. A woman beside her, crying openly. And a man, tall, still, watching like the world had just cracked open. The guard's radio buzzed. He touched his earpiece, listening, then glanced back at Jonah. "Hey," he said, softer now. "They want to talk to you." Jonah's stomach dropped. Talk usually meant trouble. He considered bolting. He knew the alleys better than any of them, but something held him in place. That same pull from the window. Inside, Victor made a decision that would have shocked his board of directors. "Bring him in," he said. Paula turned to him, stunned. "Victor." "Now," he repeated, not harshly, firmly, like a man afraid he'd change his mind. Jonah followed the guard through doors that closed too quietly, past floors that smelled like money and polish. He kept his hands visible, his answers short. He noticed things he shouldn't have known to notice, the way the art felt chosen by committee, the way no one actually sat in the chairs. When he reached the 3rd floor, Eleanor was waiting. She was smiling. Not big, not confident, but real. Jonah forgot to be afraid, and that scared him more than anything else. They didn't see Jonah right away. That alone unsettled him. Adults usually rushed, questions, rules, assumptions. Instead, Victor gestured toward the wide hallway window and said nothing. The silence stretched, heavy but not hostile. Eleanor broke it. "Your footwork," she said, voice soft and unsure, like she was testing whether it still belonged to her. "You pause before you turn, like you're waiting." Jonah's shoulders eased without him realizing it. "I am," he said. "If you rush it, you fall." Victor watched this exchange closely. Eleanor hadn't commented on anything like that since the accident. Doctors had called it emotional withdrawal. Victor had called it grief. Neither explanation had helped. "Who taught you?" Eleanor asked. Jonah hesitated. This was a medium reveal. Names carried weight. But the way Eleanor watched him, open, unguarded, made lying feel wrong. "My mom," he said. "She used to dance when she cooked. Burned everything." A corner of his mouth lifted. Didn't care. Eleanor laughed again. It came easier this time, like a door that had already been unlocked. Paula pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed. Victor turned away, pretending to check his phone, because watching this felt too intimate, too exposing. Billionaires were not supposed to be witnesses to miracles they didn't earn. "Can you?" Eleanor swallowed. "Can you dance again?" Jonah nodded, though his heart kicked hard against his ribs. He stepped back, creating space the way his mother had taught him. Always respect the room. He imagined the hum of her voice, the tap of her spoon against the pan. He danced slower this time. Every movement was intentional. He mirrored Eleanor's small gestures, the way her fingers flexed when she was nervous, the way her head tilted when she concentrated. It wasn't imitation. It was conversation. Eleanor felt seen before she realized why. A flashback hit her without warning. Her mother clapping softly at the edge of the kitchen, saying, "Dance back to me. Let me know you're listening." Eleanor's throat tightened. She didn't stop smiling. When Jonah finished, he bowed. Not deeply, not dramatically. Just enough. Eleanor laughed, clear and bright. Victor felt it like a blow. 3 years collapsed into a single moment. Hospital corridors. Doctor's eyes sliding away. Eleanor's silence at dinner. Victor's own choice to bury himself in work because at least numbers obeyed logic. "You're very good," Victor said, surprising himself with how unsteady his voice sounded. Jonah shrugged. "I practice." "Where?" Victor asked. "Wherever I can," Jonah replied. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. A thin chain slipped free from Jonah's collar as he moved, catching the light. A small compass charm rested against his chest. Victor froze. The world narrowed to that piece of silver. He knew it. Years ago, he'd commissioned it for a woman named Sarah, an outreach coordinator who challenged his decisions, who argued about people like Jonah when Victor preferred spreadsheets. She'd quit after a fight. Pregnant. He remembered noticing the chain on her neck one last time as she walked out. He'd told himself she'd be fine. "Where did you get that?" Victor asked too quickly. Jonah's guard snapped back into place. He closed his fingers around the charm instinctively. "It was my mom's." "What was her name?" Victor pressed. Jonah's jaw tightened. "Sarah." Silence fell hard. This was not coincidence. This was consequence. Eleanor sensed the shift immediately. "Dad." Victor didn't answer. His passages stepped into the room, barefoot and breathing. And Jonah, suddenly unsure again, wondered if dancing had been a mistake after all. Victor didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in his penthouse office, city lights stretching beneath him like a map of choices he'd already made. The name Sarah echoed louder than any siren outside. He opened drawers he hadn't touched in years. Old emails, printed reports, a thin personnel file marked closed. Sarah Delgado, outreach coordinator. Hired because she believed in people Victor preferred to quantify. Fired. No. Resigned. After refusing to sign off on the shutdown of a community dance and arts program. The same week, she told him she was pregnant. Victor remembered the argument too clearly. Sarah standing across from his desk, hands resting protectively on her stomach, saying, "If you cut this program, kids like my son won't have anything left." Victor had countered with numbers. Always numbers. He'd watched her leave, convinced himself that strong people landed on their feet. The compass necklace receipt was still in his records. A farewell gift. "So you don't lose your way," he'd written in the note. He hadn't meant it to be ironic. By morning, Victor knew one thing. Ignorance was no longer an excuse. At the foundation, Jonah waited in a small conference room, feet tucked under his chair like he might need to run. Eleanor sat nearby, unusually alert. She could feel something big circling, like the moment before a storm. Victor entered alone. No lawyers. No assistants. "I owe you an explanation," he said, sitting across from Jonah. He didn't soften his tone. He didn't dramatize it either. He laid out the truth piece by piece. Sarah, the argument, the program cut, the silence that followed. He didn't justify himself. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Jonah listened without interrupting. This was step 5 territory, the emotional spine. The kind of truth that reshaped everything behind it. "My mom never talked about you," Jonah said finally. "Not like that. She said someone once believed he could save the world with money, then forgot to look at it." Victor closed his eyes. The accuracy stung. "She got sick," Jonah continued. "Worked 2 jobs anyway. Taught me to dance in the kitchen because classes cost too much. She said movement was something no one could take from you." Eleanor felt tears slip down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. Victor cleared his throat. "I can't change what I didn't do, but I can change what happens now." He slid a folder across the table. School enrollment. Housing. Medical coverage. Not charity. Responsibility. Jonah didn't touch it. "What if I say no?" Jonah asked. Victor met his eyes. "Then I respect that." A long pause followed. Jonah glanced at Eleanor. She was watching him, hopeful but not pleading. I don't want to be bought, Jonas said. Victor nodded. I don't want to buy you. Jonah exhaled. Then I'll stay. But I keep dancing. A smile broke through Victor's restraint, small, genuine. Weeks passed. Jonah moved into a guest room that didn't feel like his. Eleanor rolled her chair into the hallway more often. Laughter returned in pieces, short bursts, then longer ones. Physical therapy sessions shifted. Doctors noticed changes they couldn't explain. One evening, Eleanor wheeled herself to the window alone. Down below, Jonah practiced on the sidewalk again. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to remember where he came from. Eleanor laughed quietly to herself. The window no longer felt like a wall. It felt like a bridge. Change did not arrive all at once. It crept in, careful and quiet, like someone afraid of being chased away. Jonah learned the rhythms of the house first. The hours when it was too quiet, the corners that echoed, the way Eleanor's laughter arrived in waves rather than all at once. He kept his shoes by the door out of habit, slept light, counted exits. Old instincts didn't disappear just because the bed was soft. Victor noticed everything without commenting. He had started attending dinners again, sitting, not speaking much, listening. The habit felt unfamiliar, like writing with his non-dominant hand. Eleanor's therapist came and went, cautiously optimistic. They spoke of muscle memory and neural pathways. Eleanor didn't care about the words. She cared that Jonah danced while she practiced, that he matched her pace, slowed when she slowed, paused when fear crept in. Don't rush it, Jonah said once, almost without thinking. Eleanor froze. That had been her mother's phrase. Flashback struck her hard this time. The kitchen, sun slanting through the window, her mother barefoot on the tiles, counting softly. Eleanor remembered falling, crying, being lifted and spun anyway. We don't stop because we fall, her mother had said. We stop when we forget why we started. Eleanor exhaled and kept going. One afternoon, Jonah disappeared. Paula noticed first. Victor second. Eleanor last, but when she did, panic flared fast and sharp. Victor found Jonah at the old community center across town. The building was boarded up, paint peeling, but the floor inside was still smooth. Jonah danced alone in the dust-filled light, movements bigger than usual, angrier. I needed to remember, Jonah said when Victor spoke from the doorway. Remember what? Victor asked. That this doesn't own me, Jonah said, gesturing at the empty hall. That she doesn't get erased just because I'm safe now. Victor nodded. I closed this place, he said quietly. I thought I was making a smart decision. Jonah didn't stop dancing. You were making a clean one. Victor watched, shame and resolve tangling together. We're reopening it, he said. Not with my name on it. With hers. Jonah faltered, just for a beat. Weeks later, the reopening was small. No press. Just kids. Music. Laughter. Eleanor watched from the doorway, hands gripping her wheels. Jonah danced in the center of the room, not performing, inviting. Come, he said. Eleanor rolled forward, then stopped. Fear threatened to undo everything. Jonah didn't move closer. He waited. She laughed, a nervous, breathless sound, and rolled again. The room held its breath. Eleanor stood, not fully, not alone, but upright enough to feel the floor again. Applause erupted. Eleanor laughed harder than she had in years, tears streaming freely now. Victor turned away, overwhelmed. He finally understood. Money hadn't healed his daughter. Presence had. Accountability had. A boy dancing without music had. That night, Eleanor slept without the window facing her bed. She didn't need it anymore. The stage lights were warmer than Jonah expected. Not blinding. Not harsh. Just enough to make the floor glow like it mattered. He stood barefoot at center stage, breathing slowly, feeling the grain of the wood beneath his feet. The theater wasn't large, but it was full. Kids from the reopened center filled the first few rows, whispering and pointing. Therapists sat beside parents. Donors sat quietly, unsure how to behave in a room that wasn't asking them for anything. Victor watched from the aisle, not the front. He hadn't wanted a seat of honor. He'd learned, finally, where those usually put you. Eleanor waited near the stage ramp, her wheelchair angled slightly away from the audience. She could stand now, briefly, shakily, but tonight wasn't about proving anything. Tonight was about witnessing. Jonah closed his eyes. There was music this time, but he barely heard it. What he heard was memory. His mother's hum. The echo of an empty community hall. The quiet click of a foundation door opening when it shouldn't have. He moved. The dance told a story without explaining it. Sharp turns became setbacks. Pauses became losses. Stillness became grief. The audience leaned forward, caught in micro moments they couldn't name, but felt compelled to follow. Halfway through, Jonah glanced toward Eleanor. That was the cue. She rolled forward, heart pounding, laughter already bubbling up because fear no longer owned the whole space. Jonah adjusted his pace without breaking rhythm, slower now, inviting without demanding. This was not a miracle scene. No swelling music, no sudden triumph, just connection. Eleanor stood with help, then without it for a breath longer than last time. The room stayed silent, not expectant, respectful. When she laughed, it rang clear and strong, the sound carrying through the space like a release. Jonah finished in stillness. For a moment, no one clapped. Then the applause arrived, not explosive but steady, rising, sustained. The kind that didn't rush to end the moment. The kind that listened back. Victor felt tears on his face and didn't bother wiping them away. He remembered Sarah dancing in a kitchen too small for hope. Remembered choosing efficiency over impact. He understood now that the cost hadn't been financial. It had been human. After the crowd thinned, Jonah sat on the edge of the stage, legs swinging. Eleanor rolled up beside him. "You didn't rush it," she said. Jonah smiled. "Neither did you." Outside, the city moved as it always had. Inside, something had permanently shifted. Weeks later, Jonah's name appeared on a scholarship list. Eleanor's therapy notes changed tone. Victor's foundation quietly restructured, funding fewer things but committing fully to them. And sometimes, late in the evening, Eleanor and Jonah returned to the third-floor window. They watched the sidewalk together. Not because they were trapped behind glass anymore, but because they remembered the moment when a boy dancing without music reminded them how to listen. The window never opened. It didn't need to.